Welcome to the World Builders Anvil, episode 99, Holding Out for a Hero. Welcome back. As always, I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
And we're coming to you today from Cable Customer Service Studios. So please, if you want good customer service, do not call here right now.
As you may have remembered, if you had tuned in last week, Jeff and I sat down and tried. We tried to make a hero. We tried to make a new character, and we were going to make a hero kind of in this creation binge that we're on right now, which I'm really enjoying. And in making a hero, we decided it was important to define a hero, and we spent the entire episode defining a hero, so we didn't actually create anything.
I think it was the curse of the song title we picked as the name of the episode.
You think that is what started it all? I don't think so. Well, you already had.
It wasn't I Need a Hero.
No. The first one was We Don't Need Another Hero.
And we ended up not making one.
I see. All right. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So we sat down. We tried to make one last week. It didn't work because we spent so much time defining what we feel a hero is, which I think was important. We needed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're ready to build.
Yes. And so this time I'm ahead of the game, and this entire character is being inspired by a character who I don't even remember. Essentially...
Then how do you know it's being inspired by that if you don't remember?
Because the name's coming from this other character, who's one of the 108 stars, the 99th star from Suikoden. And
which, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that Jeff and I are huge fans of that game.
And so I took what her name means, and I translated it into Badrachum, which the name would be Amelheim, and it will be a lady. And it would be short, we'll call her Am. Which would be what she would be called.
Just Am.
Am.
Like Am.
Yeah.
I am.
That actually does not change the sound, a double letter in Badrachum.
Okay.
Essentially, it indicates the letter before it is long. The vowel preceding it is long.
Okay.
So there's a purpose to it, but it does not actually affect the sound.
Aim?
No, because you're speaking English.
Fair enough. But that is a long A for the record.
In English. Would you like to look at the phonics I have defined?
No, I do not.
Because a short A in Badrachum is more like, it's almost like an O in hot. It's
Fair enough.
Very short, very quick. Okay.
So Am. Am is the name, the short name of our hero, and it's a woman.
And essentially it stands for hard work. That's what the name means, which is actually a very fitting name.
So I already feel like I'm behind the curve because you've already decided on a name and a gender for our character. The irony is that I think that I was going to push towards a female character anyway, so I like that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and well, one, there are not enough female characters who are heroes, so I have no issues doing that.
Positive female role models.
And the other thing is, the character I based it on happened to be female, which backed up my thoughts on it as well, too.
Well, how much creation are we going to do here if you've already got something you're basing it on? Or is that... Or
that's it.
That's all you've based
That's
it?
it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Because I actually am trying not to overly pull from a fiction that I love.
No.
Because I was thinking about a female hero the other day, too. And I was like, okay, I got to try to not pull from that character.
Unfortunately, this was a very minor character with 108 stars.
Yeah.
It's understandable. So this isn't one of the go-to female characters in there. So I don't even remember the character.
Now, getting back to the different hero types that we talked about last time, we've got Greek, affectionately referred to as a Boy Scout or archetype or archetype.
Depending on which country you're from.
Yes. Anti-hero, dark hero, and reluctant hero. So that's 5 types. Greek hero, Boy Scout hero, anti-hero, dark hero, and reluctant hero.
Or Greek Boy Scout.
Or Greek Boy. Or, well, I was just about to say, or a combination of any of thereof. Do you have something in mind?
No.
No, you don't have any preference here? You want to throw a dartboard at the wall, or do you want to just like pick something?
I have no preference. Do you have a preference?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of anti-heroes. I'm a big fan of dark heroes. I'm a big fan of reluctant. I think for the purpose of this creation, I don't think it should be a dark hero. Or rather, was dark hero like the cursed hero, or was that the Greek hero?
That's the Greek hero.
Like tragic hero. Was that dark?
Yeah. No, that's Greek.
That's Greek. Okay. I don't think we should go dark, and I don't think we should go anti. I like reluctant.
Okay. Do you want to do strictly reluctant?
As opposed to Greek or reluctant Boy Scout. I don't think it should be Boy Scout. That's too cookie cutter.
Yeah, and so is anti. Really, it's sort of your Lex Luthor who's doing the right thing,
right?
By your definition.
Well, maybe we do. So maybe we do want dark. Dark would be I can justify like Punisher. Punisher's dark.
Mm-hmm.
Dark, reluctant.
Mm-hmm. I like just reluctant.
Or do you think that's too much?
I think let's go for a little bit more realistic kind of hero. Someone who's pushed into it.
Is the Badracham culture more a man's world, or is it pretty gender equal?
It's more gender equal than sort of European cultures were. However, in the time period that I'm currently working on, there's a huge push by the male population to sort of push it more towards the European model.
Towards male dominated.
Towards not only male dominated, but not completely male dominated, but definitely women have more trouble inheriting and stuff like that. But currently, the rules of inheritance are equal.
And when you say currently, you mean for the purposes of when this hero lives. Okay.
Yes.
So relative equality for men, for men and women.
But it leans towards the men, definitely.
But it leans towards the men. Is it common for women to have whatever occupation?
Yes and no. Women do have more of a tendency to work out of the home kind of jobs, much like ours. Mm-hmm. That means something a little bit different in the culture. Mm-hmm. However, a woman warrior is definitely not unheard of.
Okay. So notes so far, we're going to go with reluctant. And obviously, we already know it's going to be a woman. And I like the idea of humble beginnings. Like, she's not like royalty or comes from a rich family or whatever. I'm thinking like a working class woman.
Very good.
You good with this? I'm just going to write humble. Any distinguishing physical traits that you want to throw out there to start? I mean, if you figure she's a hero in a medieval sort of setting, she's probably going to have some physical prowess, at least some athleticism, if not.
But usually when I define it as a trait, it's outside of the norm good. Essentially, I balance it off to 10 being what the average human would be in sort of GURPS terms, where that's really different in a medieval day than it would be today.
Right. Let me sidebar that real quick. If you're not familiar with GURPS, generic universal role-playing system, the number 10 on a scale from 1 to 18 is your free average. So like if you had an intelligence of 10, you're just your average guy. A physical 10, you're just average strength.
That'd be your starting place.
That'd be your starting place. Like if you're a weekend athlete, maybe 11. If you're a really good athlete, maybe 10 or maybe 12 rather. Yeah. And as that climbs up, you're talking more like pro to the point where if you're at 18, that's like Captain America.
Yeah.
So just to give people an idea, because I think maybe using these numbers will probably help us.
And now here's a thought too. Do we want her to be from the warrior aspect of things, the magic aspect of things, or
if she's if we want to go with a humble beginning, working class, I think that she wouldn't be warrior class.
I don't say warrior class, but I mean, she develops as a hero, will it be in a martial sense or in another sense?
I kind of like the nether sense, because let's take it from the working class. You've got a large farming community and fishing community, right? They're right by the water there too. So she could be come from a family like that.
Sure.
And if she was in the farming aspect, then magic, if she had that ability, would be very useful. So I say that she has that strength, that power, that ability that then lends to maybe an affinity for heroic style magic. I'm just using it doesn't necessarily even need
to be magic or warrior. It could be more from the sticky finger perspective as well too.
Like a thief. Look, we're creating like 3 or 2 cents, and is that what you want? Is you like that idea?
I always fall to thieves.
But is a thief heroic? Does that
a reluctant thief could be here?
Does that okay? So maybe she's a thief.
I mean, Robin Hood was a thief.
Fair enough, but I wouldn't call him reluctant.
No, but he was a thief.
True.
So being a thief does not disqualify you from being a hero.
No, but it's a big punch, and it's a big punch against you.
Well, it depends on how
Robin
and why
Hood
you're
is an exception that proves the rule. Not a. I mean, there's not very many thief heroes. Can you think of a couple more? You're looking up at the ceiling, and
the guy from Lackmar, who I can't remember.
I'm not saying
Conan spent time as a thief.
I'm not saying they're not out there.
Conan was a thief as well too.
I know. I'm not, and I would. Well, okay, yeah, you could say he becomes a hero. Yeah. Okay. So we have reluctant, we have humble. You're going to push thief. I want to push magic. So can we have both?
Yes.
So how do you feel about a farming background?
That would be very, very logical for...
Farming background, family's poor, hard to make ends meet. She steals to keep the family going. So that's how the thievery develops. Yep. We like this so far?
And she doesn't have to stay a thief, but that would be a beginning.
So maybe it's like what do you call it? What's the Les Mis, steals out of necessity.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Jeff's pushing thief and he gets it.
Stole that one. I am going to go very untrained magic user. Like maybe she knows some basic, like helps some stuff grow or maybe moisturize or whatever. She can add a little water to it, but she doesn't know enough. Like she's actually got really strong potential. She can't start teaching herself spells.
Exactly.
But she knows what she's been taught.
And probably doesn't have access to a whole lot. Like she could probably
At least not through the normal channels.
Well, I'm talking through the start of the story. Like I'm talking like, again, going back to a humble start. Yeah. Like think of her like, oh, you know what we're doing right here? Or at least part of what I'm doing unintentionally. Luke Skywalker. Great potential. Totally untapped until he gets into Obi-Wan. So same thing here. She's got the potential, but she has no idea what to do with it or like maybe she could do a little bit, but not until I'm going to call when the heroic part of her story begins, the awakening. Like once that awakening occurs, then potential starts getting unlocked. Maybe she starts stepping away from the thievery a little bit because she's being taught magic.
Yeah.
Okay. So important things we discussed in the last episode about what defines a hero is motivation and purpose. And you also put perspective up there, which I'm totally going to agree with because I think that's really important too. We talked about, you know what? We ended the episode kind of that way, talking about what the hero thinks about what they're doing and what they're involved in.
Most definitely.
So I think we need to talk about the awakening. What is her big purpose? Like, what is there a conflict? Are the Bedrachim in a war?
No.
Or maybe some type of... I know... Who was it that pushed them out up into the mountains? And
the orcs.
The orc. No. Prior to the orcs.
Oh.
Remember? There's a big, huge...
Oh, the Siren?
The Siren, is that who pushed them up into the mountains? And then from the mountains, they ended up at the base of the mountains by the water.
Oh, I know. I know what you're saying. The Ascarai.
The Ascarai. Yeah. Ass.
Like A-S.
Ascarai. The Ascarai. Yeah, so the Ascarai, maybe is that a conflict that comes to them, or are they safe where they are right now?
They're safe where they are now. She could be a Siren in Bedrachim lands if she's human. She could be an orc in Bedrachim lands if she's human.
Well, I wasn't actually getting to race yet. What I'm talking about is like...
What I'm saying is if we want to find like where there could be conflicts.
Okay.
Those are a couple. She's poor, so that in itself, in a medieval feudal society kind of sucks.
Okay.
So, or she could be a Bedrachim human, sort of near actually her name would lend she's Bedrachim, sort of maybe on the borderlands with where the orcs are along the edge of the mountains.
Didn't you say, remember when we had...
Or it could just be the area she lives in right now is in a severe drought. And that is forcing people to do things beyond the normal means to survive. Drought.
Oh, drought. Gotcha. You remember a while back we talked about, oh boy. You were talking about the hierarchy and the families and kind of a general. I forget the term you used for it. He was like in charge of the military, but not in charge. Like he couldn't.
The Grand Knight?
The Grand Knight. Okay. So that whole thing where you've got the Grand Knight and what was the other governing body? Like the Lords, maybe?
There are two councils that rule effectively the country. One is oh my goodness. It is the exact name is unfortunately eluding me right now, but essentially it is the Council of Princes, I'll call it. And essentially
that's right. We're not kings, we're princes.
We're all princes.
And they took over from the prior kings who were all corrupt and yada yada yada.
And they essentially have probably more power than the king did of the old country. So they essentially probably have more power than the princes than the kings of old did, which really But it's a propaganda thing, and we talked about that before,
Right.
where, we're not kings, but
Right.
we just have more power than a king would.
My point to bring that up is I know there was an aspect that we discussed where they could kind of own people, not quite like slaves, but more like serfs. Is that true? Or am I making that up from something else?
That was the orcs. The orcs essentially are serfs tied to the land.
Well, my thought is
there is a right to move, but it's not easy.
My thought is maybe she's in some part of this system where, she's under the thumb, and that creates the start of a larger conflict that she gets pulled into. Something like maybe she sees something she wasn't supposed. Maybe she sees something she wasn't supposed to see. Maybe she's privy to something that
I like that.
Maybe she's privy
sort
to
of
something.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Forces her to be a hero.
That brings the reluctance in. Yeah. Maybe there's a conspiracy that she becomes.
I could work her into a story I'm working on. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe there's a conspiracy or a plot against a ruler.
Yes.
Yeah, which of course, I'm sure there's a lot of that. But so she becomes aware of something. Now, is it like Gandalf, where, Gandalf comes in and pulls her in, a la pulling Bilbo in, or does she literally just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and overhear or oversee something?
Now, I think, one, if she has magic that's being utilized to further the land, it's probably a known thing that she knows magic.
Well, I thought you said it was pretty common, though.
I wouldn't say it's pretty common, but magic used that way is the most common way to use magic.
Right.
Magic itself is not common.
So one in every how many people?
Probably at 1 in 100,000.
Oh, wow. So a lot less common than I thought.
Yes.
But so she is pretty special.
She is pretty special having any magic.
Even if she could just be like, I'm going to put a little more water over the crops. That's huge. Everyone else would have to get buckets.
She's probably weaker at magic, though. So she's probably, has the ability to channel it, but it's not super easy for her. Because if she could pull off an amazing thing, she would almost assuredly catch the eye of mages, because mages in general are gilded as they are sort of in D&D. But the idea is the government really wants to track who they are. But talented ones actually get sort of sucked away and sent off to train. And she would be out of the hardship part of her life.
Well, what if someone came to recruit her and she's got let's create a little family around her. It doesn't have to be super specific, but definitely at least one ailing parent, if not both of the parents still around. Got to be a couple younger siblings. She's the oldest.
Okay, so
because she's taking on the responsibility.
We want her running the family,
right? Okay. Well, not necessarily running the family, but certainly doing the lion's share of the work to help them and keep them,
afloat.
Exactly. Like she's the oldest.
They can't afford to lose her.
Yes. Okay. So even if a recruiter comes along, it's like, you got potential. We should probably get you to the academy or she's like, look, I can't. My parents.
The recruiters are usually sent by princes,
and you don't say no.
Sure, you could.
My point is, can we make it so that what I'm saying holds water, or is we got to twist something?
We got to twist something because
maybe the parents insist that she not use her magic so that anyone knows.
To try and
keep it secret.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're like, look, we can't. If anyone finds out, they're going to come take you away. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
So sort of the repress the child under the floorboards.
Hide your talent, Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't let anybody know. Okay. So we're going to put firstborn. And what are the big things we don't want to forget?
And these are all things I would call traits for people to know. They could be personality traits. They could be social traits. She is peasant stock.
Firstborn peasant.
Or as they would call them, pleasant folk.
Peasant? That might
pleasant.
No, peasant.
Yeah, and that's sort of where the word peasant comes from, because
I know, but I was trying to spell it. I don't know that I spelled it correctly.
That's spelled correctly.
Okay, cool.
I'm a fiction writer. I lie.
Did you lie, or did I spell that right?
It's close enough. I don't read.
So I didn't spell it correctly.
I believe it's a P-E-A.
I was going to say, I thought there was an A in there.
Yeah.
All right. Peasant.
Yeah. And I'm probably wrong too, so.
It would just be fun. We look it up. We're like, neither one of you spelled
there's
it
right. A Z?
There's 6 Q's in there. What are you talking about? So we have a family. We have a secret. We have a wrong place, wrong time. What do you want to do with that? Or do you want to get back to physical traits before we move forward?
That's what we're traits. And I think I think our motivation is developing in our minds right now.
Okay, so we're like a farm. We're thinking a farm worker. So she's definitely got some muscle to her. She's probably lean. Is she pretty?
No.
No, average. Ugly.
Yeah.
Average.
I like average.
Average looking. All right.
Because I think media in general tries to make women either overly attractive or ugly to show that they're not attractive, and let's just make her average.
Middle of the road.
She would probably be lean because suntan because she's out in the fields.
Sure.
For a good portion of the day.
You figure the farmer probably has a little more food than most, but at the same time, they need to sell it to keep the farm afloat.
Which also means, from a perspective of standpoint, people's beliefs of beauty usually resonate on things that are only achieved by people richer than they are. For example, if you were a heavy, pasty woman in the Middle Ages, you were hot.
Attractive. Yeah.
And today you'd be ugly because the rich people are now working at gyms, sunbathing all day, and have all of those traits that peasants used to have and would be considered on the icky side.
Okay, so average looking, wrong place, wrong time.
Okay.
I think this is pretty much all you. I can probably bend some ideas for you, but you need to come up with them because you know the world better.
Yeah, let's see. So where would I want her in my story? And I think I want her later. Okay. So,
and also, as we're doing this, if there's anything that you think you can add for the listener, what they can think about within the context of their story that might help them create it, and throw the mechanics in too.
Sure. And so essentially what I'm thinking of right now is, in the mechanics of the world, I'm working on sort of a story that's going to keep coming. I'm going to keep coming back to over time.
Keep coming back to her, or the subplot.
This overarching plot.
Okay.
And sort of the first books I'm working on are sort of near the beginnings of it, and there are things I could use right there to get and insert her into the story quickly. But I don't want to.
Because you don't want her in that timeline, or because you don't want her to mess up what you've already created?
No, she could. Her starting could be happening her starting is probably happening somewhere around this time as well too.
So parallel to what you've got going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a little bit different place. I think she's probably from the kingdom of Bedrakis. So she's probably from the principality of Bedrakis in the kingdom of Bedrakis, because the prince there is a naughty man, and he's plotting to become
evil,
something
like evil, super evil.
Well, it depends on perspective.
But he just wants to be like an emperor, maybe.
He wants to be king.
He wants to be king,
and which is the verboten title, the forbidden title of Bedrakis, or the kingdom of Grimbatis, would be there are no kings. However, there are always princes and high lords who want to become king.
Right.
And he is one of probably several in this time period who are trying to build a power base.
Less than 10? More than 10?
I would say less than 1%.
I mean, like, how many of these princes / lords are? Go with the highest.
Okay.
Is the highest level prince.
The highest level is prince for lords.
Roughly how many of those would there be? Roughly.
In this time period, there's 1, 2, 3. That's not one yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 within this time period.
Just 4.
There will be 2 more.
Okay, so knocking those other 3 out of the way to be king is really not...
It's not implausible. Yeah. There are a few other lords, because essentially it would be considered like an archduke level. There are several lords who are sort of at that level, and essentially the prince is elected from their lords, and so there are other lords that might be competitors within their own domain as well, not just the other princes.
And are they prince for life?
They are prince for life. Okay. You are elected for life, and usually families that take those titles, it's probably more to do with the family strength than it really has to do with the qualities of the person. So it's usually hereditary, even though it's not. It's usually the prince's son will become the next prince. Not always, but
so you want to hope that he has a decent guy as a child.
Yeah, you hope, and most of the lords will hope as well too, along with the peasants. Peasants might not even notice.
They're just fighting to get by.
They're fighting to get by no matter who's in charge. And rarely is a lord so horrific unless you happen to be on his lands, in which case it wouldn't matter if he's the prince or not. But yeah, the lords would probably hope he's a good son too, and they would all try and help him out. And some of it would be from their own self-interest of, we need him to be competent. And the other part will be, I want to be his friend when he becomes prince.
I have an idea. I don't know if it fits with what you're doing.
Go ahead.
What if you have a case where it's like the father's lingering on, the son is definitely of, like, say the son is like late 20s, so he's really at that age that would be a good time for him to him become prince. But because the princes are elected for life, the father's still around, he's crotchety, evil, whatever. Maybe the son's got a little evil in him too, and he's thinking about killing his father to usurp the principality.
That would fit this family. And
maybe she becomes aware of it for whatever, however reason.
I like that.
You like this?
I like that. We can use that.
Okay.
Because I imagine Prince Hogar is his name, is probably, and that is would be the father of the villain, I guess. But they're both villains.
Father of the villain. So he's the prince.
Yes, he's the prince. Yes. And he's, I imagine him in his 40s because he's relatively young to be a prince because his father died early. Not super young, but relatively young.
So 40 is young to be prince?
Yes, because usually it's the eldest child. Usually it's the eldest son.
Okay.
And you figure if you have a kid in your 20s and you live to 60, they're 40.
Okay. So his son would actually be really young to become prince.
Oh, yes. And it would not unheard of by any stretch of the imagination.
So it does happen at that age.
Yeah.
Like you might, every so many generations.
But the trick is not only do you have to get rid of the dad, you have to have the votes in place to be elected for life, or you just topple your father and Archduke Fancy Pants.
He gets the vote.
He gets the vote, and all of a sudden you murdered your dad for nothing.
Yeah. So now you look like a heel for the rest of Fancy Pants' role.
Yes.
And then probably his son.
Who's probably smart enough to realize what happened and will probably taunt you relentlessly in the court without accusing you openly, but, or maybe accusing you openly and killing you just to seize your family's lands.
Okay. So how much of creating the hero is, what are the more important things? Character traits about the character itself or the backstory? Like, what else do we want to? Because we only have so much time. So what else do we really want to
I think we want to get off the backstory at this point and move on more towards the actual traits of the character.
Okay. So she's average looking. We know physically we have an idea.
So quirks, we'll do that last. Physical attributes, we want her a little stronger than average.
Okay. So 12? I'm going to go with GURPS numbers because that'll be faster
if that
for
makes
us.
you feel better. So I'll put down 12, which would be slightly above average, but not super strong.
You want to go 13?
No.
All right. So strength of 12, which is stronger than your average human. Intelligence? How smart is she? Is she kind of smart? Is she a little street smart? Is she very smart but not learned yet?
I don't think she's very smart. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think she's clever.
11, 12?
Well, I think it's around 12 again. There
12 too. Again, too? All right. Now, GURPS also goes with dexterity and health. I don't know if those are quite applicable to what we want to do. Do you even want to use those?
I'm only worried about things that are off of average.
Well, you're going with thief here. Let's not forget her early thief upbringing. Do you want to put dexterity in here for that?
No. I think she's an average dexterity person. She's not a stealthy thief. She's a clever thief.
Okay, so she just gets away with doing stuff when people aren't looking.
And maybe she's tweaked out a few things to help sort of bend the shadows in her way as well.
Okay.
Maybe she uses the magic to help her in that sense.
So average dexterity and, health, I suppose it doesn't really matter for our discussion. We could call that 10.
Yeah.
Is there any other, basic attribute of a being that you want to attach here?
No. That's it.
So generally, we're talking about you're pretty much average person. She's a little smarter than most. She's a little stronger than most. Yep. She probably takes longer to fatigue just from doing farm work.
She's probably, and this would be something I would call a trait. She's socially connected in her community. She knows everyone. You know. So, sort of in D&D terms, she has, charisma with the people around her because she helps them get what they need.
Oh, okay. So
they help her get what she needs.
So we should add a little charisma in there. So I would say more like 13 there.
That's probably her strongest skill.
Her charisma. So she knows everybody, but she's still good enough, smart enough to hide the fact that she does have some magic talent.
What she does is she helps other families in the area get things that they need, and then later on she uses them to help get other things that are needed.
Yep.
So she's sort of like networking.
She's a networker. Yeah. Okay. So motivation for her, I'm like, her day-to-day motivation is take care of the family and maybe take care of the community. Because
we want to think beyond the day-to-day motivation.
Well,
why does she get involved?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like I was going to cover her basic motivation as a foundation, because that's going to lean towards her larger motivation that defines her as a hero.
And this is one area as a world builder you have to be careful. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you're saying she's a networker, so she cares about her community. It's not just a self-centered networking thing. Like, she's not just taking care of her family. I think that she sees the
community as her family.
Well, not only that, but sees that if we all work together and kind of, three-way trade and cross-trade things, that everybody can benefit. So she cares about her community.
Yeah.
And thus, getting back to our evil prince, if super evil son gets into play, she knows that's going to trickle down onto the community and infect it. Okay. That's her motivation for not wanting him to kill the father.
I got something here.
Okay, keep going.
The classic thing you start doing when you're trying to build up against a lord is you start trying to gather troop strength, because that's really ultimately what it comes down to. I've surrounded your castle. I have more troops than you have. I'll starve you out if you don't surrender. So he's probably coming up with some sort of troop strength, whether it's other lords aligned to him, maybe gathering money to buy mercenaries. And this is and to me, this is a common tactic. There is a brigand band, sort of not necessarily on the edge of her county, that is raiding local caravans, raiding local communities, and they're stealing from everywhere around there. And they are actually compiling cash for Prince Hogar's son.
Okay.
He's actually using these brigands. He's splitting the cash with them. And it's probably a military guy involved, an older military guy who's leading the brigands, who their actual task is they're trying to raise up the funds to fund the endeavor.
To support the
political machinations.
The younger one usurping.
And here's the problem.
So is that where she comes into play? That's what she discovers?
She discovers that through her networking trading schemes.
She hears enough things from enough people and puts two and two together.
And the problem being, if Prince Hogar finds out that there are brigands who are essentially working to usurp his throne.
Well, what is the son's name, so we have a distinction?
I don't know.
You haven't named him yet?
I've not named the son yet.
Okay, so we'll just say son.
Yep.
Hogar is the prince, and the evil son is trying to usurp. So if we just say son, that's what we're referring to.
So if Hogar finds out of the son's plan and is essentially starting to gather men and monies and stuff to usurp him, he will send in his troops and clean house. And it might just be a little too close to their village. The village might get caught in the fray. And so it's a fear, not so much if she cares which one of them's in charge.
Okay.
But she's afraid that
she's worried
their
about
fighting is
killed in the
too
shuffle.
Close to where her community is.
Okay. Now, that's her motivation. But how is her opposition going to come into play? Like, do they discover that she knows? Or is it just going to be she's working on the sidelines against their efforts?
She's probably...
Because I think her effort needs to be big enough for us to justify the word hero.
Yeah, but once again, where does it start? And I think it starts with her trying to do things behind the scenes,
smaller,
to sort of throw wrenches into their plan. And at some point, they would figure out that this stupid peasant girl is getting in their way, and then that's when it would propel into a larger story. And at that point, the quick argument is, how does one person make a difference? Like, if all these brigands find out that she's doing it, she's not one person. Remember, what are we setting her up to be? She's this networking person. She helps people all along the area.
Right. But if a whole pile of brigands come into the village, is the village going to go to fight for her? I mean, that's what we're escalating
Probably
towards.
not, but the thing is...
They'd hide her, I believe.
They would help hide her. They'd help her know the movements of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is finding that one person...
I think she's going to be a Robin Hood style at that point.
I think she's going to be pushed sort of in that Robin Hood style way, where it's not so much her against the rich, but it's her against essentially the sun. And she might even leave her area to help protect them to take it to the prince somewhere, or the prince's son somewhere else.
Yeah, you guys take care of my family while I'm gone. I've been taking care of everybody.
Because the brigands will come here and kill the village, and I don't want that to happen either. And if I'm gone and you don't know where I'm at, I can protect you too. So it can kind of roll into that style of the story.
Okay,
and force her into this much larger game of noble politics, which is...
At that point, she becomes the classic traveling hero.
Yes.
And she might have to come up with some new, more powerful friends, and it turns into a role-playing adventure.
Not only that, though, but this is where she could get linked up with the story I'm currently working on, because they'll be looking for people, and Prince Regina, who's the prince of Clynfaris, which is where my hero for my first book will be from.
Clynfaris.
Actually looks for people based off of competency, not off of birth.
Interesting.
And so
he's smart.
He's not smart. I mean, he's not as smart as she is.
Okay.
But he has a strong tactical and strategic mind. But William has a physical prowess. Are you talking about the prince?
I'm talking about the character you're talking about from the book that's looking for people.
No, he has more of this sort of natural attunement to fighting. And so essentially a weapon in his hand, to him, you swinging a sword at him full strength seems slow. And he has a chance to think out what he's going to do as you start to attack him and react. So to you, it seems like you're not faster than the kid, but really he can perceive and process it so quickly in his mind
that he has enough time
to react and beat the crap out of you. Even though he's probably slightly over average strength, he's probably a little bit more dexterous than she is, a little bit more health than she is, but doesn't have the charisma she does not have the intelligence she does. But when he sees it tactically, it just processes. It's like second nature.
My point is that like he's going to see her, like he'll discover her, and he'll know.
He'll discover her. Prince Regina will discover her. Eric, the mage, or Eric the bard will discover her, which could be likely if she's forced to use magic, because if she sends out a magic ripple that gets noticed, maybe that's how she could get pulled in.
Becomes largely discovered. Like maybe she's about to get killed, and she
has to use something big.
Like she does it like by accident. Like she does something where she like just like summons mana and blasts a guy or does something, and everyone's like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" She doesn't even realize.
Yeah,
and maybe she's being smart, fakes everybody out, and it's just like, "Oh, boogie, stay back, or I'll blow you up too."
That's right.
You know what I mean? Even though she has no idea how she did it.
Yes,
but no one else realizes that. So, okay. We've got our motivations down, are pretty good. What's her purpose?
I think her purpose would be to prevent Hogar and the Sun having a war
at all,
especially where they are. But I think as she starts to travel a bit, she understands that no matter where they fight,
problems are going to happen.
Whoever that poor community is going to get caught in the middle, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to turn up to her trying to prevent a war between those two.
Does it turn into an assassination plot?
Maybe. And the other thing is probably what's going to happen is when she starts to realize, she's going to realize Hogar's plotting to become king. And so now
everyone's trying to step up.
So he's actually trying to take out Prince Regina and the other princes as well too, because so she starts to realize that not only could this be a small little fight between a father and a son, this could be all of the major lords fielding major armies and a massive civil war. So it'd probably ultimately be to stop a civil war.
So she trips basically over the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
I think we understand her perspective at this point.
Yeah. And her perspective would be from that of a commoner.
Yeah,
not just a Badrakan, but a Badrakan commoner.
Everybody doesn't need to get hurt. Everyone doesn't need to die over this stuff. You guys are just arguing over land.
Could you guys just step out back and take care of this like real men?
Yeah. Well,
no, we cannot.
Do we want to step down on a small scale and come up with some quirks for her?
Yeah, because quirks to me, these are tiny things. It might resemble larger problems, but they're minute. They affect the personality of the character, not, so like maybe they're obsessive in one sense, but they're not obsessive compulsive. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're paranoid about a kind of a person, but not to a way in which it controls them. More, it makes them suspicious. They're suspicious of, maybe that's a good one for her. She's suspicious of nobles.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that I think would make sense for her as a quirk, actually.
I think another fun one might be something about yard tools. You figure she's got younger siblings. Mm-hmm. They might not always put the tools back in the right order. Maybe her thing is you have to think about whatever the next task is the next morning, and the tools should be put away in that order. So the first tool you can have access to is the one that.
Oh, so she's always trying to be ahead of the game on what needs to be.
Whatever's going to happen the next day, it has to be ordered a certain way so that at the beginning of the day everything's right.
Okay.
So like some sort of like preparation, whether it's a small ritual or just something as simple as organizing whatever thing you're going to use first has to be set up first the next day.
Okay.
What else? Any weird physical like tics or like maybe hair twirling or
I find her
like some weird little thing.
I love hair twirlers. I'm actually kind of partial to those.
I don't see her as a hair twirler, though.
No, I see her as a very...
I see her more like hair's always pulled back.
I think she's an intense starer. So it's like when she's processing something, she's very a focused starer. So it's like when she's focusing on a task.
So that might catch people off guard sometimes where people, well, why? What are you staring at? Like, why are you staring at me?
Relax. And relax, too. It's like...
So she's... Okay.
So she like very intensely is focusing on something at hand.
How would that go against her charisma in any way, though?
No, that's why it's a quirk and not a trait.
Okay. All right.
It's like for me, a trait would be a positive or negative thing that would help her. It's like another trait she probably has is disliked by Hogarth's son, or his faction.
Okay. Does she have any friends? Well, I mean, obviously she's got lots of friends because she's... Well, does she have any tight friends? She's got a lot of network contacts, a lot of families and people that she knows and works with. I think. But does she have anyone that like, this is my bosom buddy, this is my best friend?
I think one of her siblings.
One of her siblings.
We'll make it a brother in honor of my older sister.
Okay. Close in age?
Close in age.
Okay.
Like just, a year or two younger.
Yeah. In the process of her becoming a hero, does she lose a family member? Classic story.
Not at the beginning. That's not. She's leaving to avoid that.
Right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
But that is it's a trope, definitely.
Yes. And I don't dislike those kind of tropes, but in this circumstance, no. But I like killing people, so
I was going to say,
if I write a story, I'll probably kill her best friend at some point just because I can't help myself.
It's
a quirk.
And I was going to say that for you. I was going to say to the listener,
maybe an actual compulsion. I'm not sure.
Definitely don't be afraid to kill the family members and what have you. I mean, take a look at some of our most popular fiction right now: The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. They kill main characters. They are not afraid to axe our favorites. And Game of Thrones,
I can see the fear of it
all the time.
I can see the fear of it, where
the fear of doing it,
of doing it, because there's a fear that that's your beloved character. You kill it off, everything loses steam.
I look at it as a challenge to the creator. Create something, make me love it, and then destroy it, and then rinse and repeat that process. I mean, Game of Thrones is like that. He keeps making more characters that I care about, and he keeps killing them, making me love and hate the show at the same time, which I think is a sign. I mean, it's good storytelling. So don't get so attached to a character. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone creates a character that they just love and they don't want to die. I mean, Yasad was that for me.
I do not like those as main characters.
Which is what remember what we were saying a couple episodes back, where I was like having a constant, and I was talking about like Han Solo and what have you. Like, you have that constant character, you know what to expect when that character pops up in the story. You don't have to kill that guy because he's not the main character. He's not going to be there.
Here's how bad I am. I have that character in my world. It's called Eric.
Eric the Bard?
Eric the Bard and the Mage, same person.
It's the same person?
Kind of.
Is it actually the same character, or are they they're like similar enough. Like, are they the same person in the world, or can you not answer? Can you not answer?
No,
that
I
question?
can't. Essentially, there's this type of magic called aspect magic, and in my world, you will be ripped off of it if your magic increases beyond a certain point.
You'll be ripped off the world.
Literally ripped off the world.
Okay.
By a horrible magic storm coming in and utterly ripping you from Earth. So if you're
Gardul.
Yes, touche. And so essentially, if you get stuck into that realm, but you're obsessive at learning, which usually people who get to that level of power are, there's this type of magic called aspect magic. And essentially, it will allow you to pull an aspect of yourself out, which will contain some of the magic. And ergo, you have a way to keep learning. It is sort of born at the age of the aspect, which is usually not a child. Mm-hmm. One of the side effects is you typically lose part of your personality to it, and
so you're kind of you're
breaking yourself into shards.
Okay,
but the worst thing is like you kind of lose part of what it becomes.
Okay,
and that's why Eric the Mage is not a very personable character. He is to characters, but Eric the Bard is like it's like if he would speak to you, it's like you would be sucked into his tongue. Mm-hmm. You know, literally, it's like, and I don't mean that in a sexual way, so stop looking at me that way, even though you're not really.
I really am.
But it's like he's very silver tongued. You know, for him, it's almost about the show, which is why he focuses on using music to deliver the magic. And Eric the Bard or Eric the Mage has no respect for how he does magic because he thinks it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's not efficient.
It's not efficient.
As part of him, he lost when that had to happen. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't. And now you can pull your aspects back together. Mm-hmm. But
harder?
It's actually easier to pull them back.
It's easier to pull them back.
But there's a problem. You've just started the clock. You will die at the point that happens.
So if you decide to pull yourself back together, mm-hmm. you are definitely. Is that accelerating the point at which you'll be pulled off the world? Or is it like it's just that's a cause of death? Like doing that?
That will not directly cause your death. You will have the full power and personality that you once had. But at that point, the universe is going, we're coming. Okay. And it won't be long.
Okay. So you won't only do that if you know, like, this is an all or nothing. I need to.
Yes. And so essentially, he's my constant character who will show up in one of the two forms, mm-hmm. To deliver the sort of Sage Gandalf-like advice. Mm-hmm. And I like Eric the Bard because he's a young guy, no beard, and he doesn't look the part. And so most people don't respect him.
Oh, this character. Yeah, we discussed this character once before.
And so, but at one point, in one of my games, I don't know if you're in that one, I actually, because of the events and his character being needed so importantly, I had to pull all of his aspects together, and then I killed him off. So I just can't help myself.
I hear you.
So my constant character I even killed off.
Well, I mean, that was like with Yasad, I couldn't help myself torturing him. Like I remember, I don't know if it was Stranger Than Fiction or maybe if it was just part of a conversation that Dawn and I had mm-hmm. talking how like we wouldn't want to meet our characters because we're so unkind to them. I tortured Yasad physically mm-hmm. and mentally, mm-hmm. killed people he loved. And you're not even aware of half of it. Like what happens after the game stopped? Mm-hmm. Like he goes off on his own whole adventure.
Yeah.
And the things that occur to him are horrible. They're absolutely horrible.
And as a game master, in a way, it kind of sucked because you want to torture the characters to punish players. And when they're coming to you going, could you turn the knife in my back a little more?
Yeah.
It sort of takes the fun out of it.
We had fun with that guy. We had fun. That whole campaign.
That was a very fun campaign, even though it did nothing that I thought it. The beginning, the 99% of that campaign, I had no idea because you guys just completely ignored.
Did not do what we were supposed to do.
But you still push story ahead,
mm-hmm.
Which is why it worked really well.
You had a lot of committed.
And we found a vibe and a rhythm for them there.
Yeah.
Because essentially it was sort of a zombie apocalypse /
I know, kind of was. I mean, for me, it never showed up that way. For me, it always showed up
You were dead half the time, so.
For me, it showed up as a war refugee story. Because we were like refugees in a war-torn city just trying to survive.
Well, the problem was you weren't refugees because you didn't leave
because
the
we
city.
didn't leave. Yeah, I know. It kind of reminded me of like Stalingrad, something like that.
Yeah, you'd have been like the family of people who decide not to leave Stalingrad.
Right.
Because there was an invasion coming. The zombie thing actually wasn't a major plot. That's something I threw in for fun because I wanted to demonstrate a new demon I had at some point. And it really had nothing to do but to suck you into the line so you'd run into this thing that you really didn't want to meet, which is what I call a phalanx demon, which is something you really don't want to meet, and I will not describe here right now.
Is that the one that I think I'm aware of this one?
The very large one with spikes?
Yes, I'm aware of this one. Yes, you don't want to meet it. Like, there are things you don't want to meet, and you want to meet them long before you meet this thing.
And the irony is, usually I don't like big brutish villains. And
this is the one that's got that random chaos thing going on with it, right?
And it's really dumb.
Yeah.
But
I know this
a
guy.
lot of times a stronger demon will manipulate it and use its body, and that's when they're super dangerous.
Right, because now you have all that power and all that intelligence.
And all that intelligence into one body. And if they're left on their own, it's like essentially it suffered.
It's like a tornado.
In sense of Earth, the way to describe it is it suffers from the seven deadly sins, and every turn in its mind, it determines which is the thing I want to do now.
Yeah.
And it might be, I want to kill him, to I want to eat her.
Yeah.
And just kind of the same thing, but not in its mind.
Right. Okay. So are there any last minute advice or recommendation for creating a hero that we want to impart upon the listener?
And one of the things I try and do is, and you see kind of the way it developed from an abstract level, or maybe you missed it, so I'll describe it quickly, is we looked for the kind of hero we wanted. I picked a period of time to see where it would make sense for this kind of reluctant hero. So once we sort of knew that it was this person who wouldn't care about politics, but we wanted them involved there, where would be a good time period? And actually, I think this character is going to show up later on in stories. So
if you guys read about Amelheim, Amelheim. If you guys read about Amelheim, short AMM, you just listen to her creation. So she might be in one of Jeff's novels, and we just created her right here and now.
And we just created her right here and now. So look forward to producing the novel. But now I think we need a world building task for the day. I wonder what it's going to be.
I want to add a little before you jump right to that. I think that if you're going to create a hero, I mean, your purpose as a writer needs to come first and foremost. Are you creating a hero because you need to create a story and thus the hero's story is the story?
Yes.
Or do you have a story that requires a hero for either a main plot or a subplot or a side character or whatever?
Because then you need to work backwards.
Exactly. So you need the hero to fit the story at that point, as opposed to, where in my world can I place this character, which is what we've just done. You're like, this time period is where I want this character, so what's going on in that time period? And we crafted the hero around the story that way. Whereas if we already had a story existing, or rather you did have a story existing, rather if we didn't have a story.
But the irony was I didn't connect them until we got to what the motivation is, and it made sense for what's going on in my
But my point is that if that wasn't already in existence, then you could just create any type of hero that you want to tell a story about, and then just generate a story around the hero.
And you're working back towards the motivation and purpose and saying, okay, what kind of motivation do I need them to fit into this type of hero I need them to be, or into this type of story?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, the backstory could be the story. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So now, task?
You're going to be shocked for the world building task of the day.
Somehow, by the way you say that, I don't think I'm going to be shocked.
It's going to be, I know what the real world task is. We're going to do that first. Push Raw off of my table. No,
I'm not going to push her off the table.
No, she's the editor,
like crazy,
and she's shaking the table. So
into the Fuzzy Kitty Studio, Fuzzy Kitty War Studios.
Okay, so the real world task of the day, the world building task of the day is to create a hero,
because we need another hero.
Because we're holding out for a hero.
We're holding out for a hero, and we need another hero.
And I don't know if this will be the complete real world task of the day. Mike might put a kibosh on that. Mm-hmm. If you could think of any 80s or early 90s pop songs that reference villains, please send them to us.
I like that.
Because we'll need a title for our
we're
next
enjoying
episode.
the song reference for the show title, and I'm sure we're going to go with books and movies and all kinds of crazy business.
But right now it happens to be songs.
It happens to be songs right now, and we're enjoying coming up with goofy show titles. And since we've just made a hero, seems pretty fair that our tease is that next week's going to be a villain.
Oh, yes.
So a song villain reference for that.
And right now, the only one I'm working off of, the working title would be Am I Demon?
Am I Demon? Or, I mean, this is not an exit, sort of comes up for me. I do want to say, you had previously said, because we talked about this before, where we did the hero episode, and you had in mind a different follow-up episode. What was that going to be?
We'll get to that later. We're doing villains next.
So Jeff has a cool idea for another episode, but without telling that to me, I had said, okay, well, we did a hero. We got to do a villain. And he was like, oh, yeah, we got to do a villain. So, and the villain we make does not need to be anti this hero.
No.
Like, I'm thinking horrible. I want to make somebody downright super evil.
Either one I'm thinking about
somebody that makes Wagner look like the ice cream man.
I don't know if that's possible.
Oh yeah, well, because don't forget motivation and purpose. Wagner is a task-based bad guy. He's not necessarily bad so much as he is a necessary punisher. Mm-hmm. I want someone who doesn't. He doesn't do it out of necessity.
Well, don't gender. Label the poor guy already.
Well, I actually, even as I said he, I was going to say he or she. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so the tease for next episode is going to be
bring out the villains.
So are we going to do it in the same format? Probably, where we end up arguing over motivation.
No, because I
think we can, because it's kind of the same thing.
Think it's the same
just
thing.
Evil.
I think that all of the things that we discussed for the creationary aspects of a hero, they fit the same thing. Yeah. Like the only difference is the motivation is an evil bent. It might not even be an evil bent. It might just show up that way.
Yes.
So I think we can skip that. I think we just create a villain next week.
That's right. So for episode 100.
Oh, it's episode 100.
It'll be episode 100.
I love that our 100th episode is a bad guy.
Villain.
Oh, I'm so excited now.